The third angelic rebellion. All right. Now, like I said, I taught this stuff for years, thought I was well versed in it, and never heard of this before. Okay, until I was challenged. I saw a program that was interviewing Michael Heiser, and he was talking all about this, and I was like, what? And I was like, Deuteronomy 32 was changed? What? What? The Dead Sea Scrolls have a different a different text completely? What? My brain was just like, and I was first like annoyed, like, that can't be true. Which some of you might have that too, by the way. If you've been taught this stuff and you were in where you'd be like, this, I never heard of this. And we get all like, no, I went to seminary. I never told them about this. They also told you the seed of Cain, so throw it out. All right? And so I was like, I got to read this book. And I didn't read the book to get my opinion changed. I read the book to say, this is bogus. Except for one problem. It wasn't bogus. His arguments were ironclad, and I had to just go, okay, fine, you're right. Fine. I didn't know. I got to change this thing I taught. I taught these things for years, and now I got to change them. That's called being honest. All right? This happened to me, and it gave me a new pair of glasses. It changed, and all of a sudden, all these things that I was seeing by teaching it started to go, oh my goodness, that's what Paul's talking about. Oh my goodness, that explains Daniel. This makes a lot of sense. The gods of the nations. It explains Solomon. Why? Because they weren't all pretend. They were real. A lot of the ancient gods, little g, of the nations were not pretend, but real. And that's the lesson of the third angelic rebellion. All right? Okay, so I'm going to explain all that to you in 6 minutes. No, we're just going to get started. We'll take our lunch break. We'll come back, and we'll dive right back in. All right? So you see, if you have any been around church for a while, of any biblical understanding, you see that tower and you know what it is. The Tower of Babel, or Babel as we say it, right? Babel is correct, but we don't say much things correct, so, or many things. It's like my English there, I was pretty good, right? We don't say many things correct, so we say Babel, but Babel is right. See, I know we also in the West, we say Baal. But see, I can't do it because it's so wrong. So I try to say Baal because that's the way it should be. That's what the double A is. But I know a lot of times, what's Baal? The prophet, the Baal. What are you gonna do? I have another one, a pet peeve with the Nephilim, because a lot of people don't, and they say Nephilim, and they put a U there. But that's a misunderstanding of Hebrew. That means they don't really get how Hebrew works, because Eim is plural in Hebrew. All right? So it's the Nephilim. Okay? Anyway, that's just a pet peeve of mine, and I'm sure it doesn't matter at all. Because like I said, we're saying 3/4 of all the words wrong anyway. All right? All right. The third angelic rebellion. Now, Tower of Babel. You say, what about the Tower of Babel? We're going to look at this. All right? Let's go through the story. No. I won't go here first. I'm supposed to explain it. That's why I have the picture there. So, what happened at Babel? The angelic rebellion, the third one, did not just start here. What happened here made the foundation for it to happen later on. And that's important. All right? Now, I'm also going to tell you about a conspiracy. Maybe I'll say this, and I'll leave it on the conspiracy. And you can talk at lunch. What the heck is he talking about? A real deal, bona fide, Jewish conspiracy. When I first heard it, that was one of the things that my head exploded. And I was like, that can't be true. That can't be true. It was true. The Bible was purposefully changed. in a malicious way, which the Dead Sea Scrolls proved ironclad. The Masoretic Hebrew text, okay, which was what King James English and many other translations, only dates back to the 10th century A.D. Everybody say A.D. Is that 1,000 years after the apostles? Yeah. All right. That's where, and all the Hebrew translations were built off of that. So no one knew about this. For generations, Christians had no clue about this. Anybody? Now, some of you have probably heard this before. Some of you may have not heard this before. This was eye-opening and to me, and for me, I should say. And I was challenged with it, but also it was eye-opening because we were missing key information purposefully. And that was the thing that blew me away. 1947, the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. And I want you to look, if you are using a paper Bible right now or a digital one, go to Deuteronomy 32 and read along with me. If you have ESV, you won't get the conspiracy. I'll have to explain it. This is the English Standard Version. And in light of the three different findings, you say three? Yeah, there was three to really put the nail in the coffin on this in the Dead Sea Scrolls in Aramaic, Hebrew, and Greek, Septuagint. It says something different than what your English Bibles say, based on the Masoretic, because most all English Bibles and other translations in other languages were based off the Masoretic Hebrew, which only goes back to the 10th century AD. But this is what was found in the Septuagint. And more now English Bibles are starting to change it. And if you even look at the NIV and the NAS and some of the newer ones, they're updated. If you look online, they'll have footnotes. Footnotes are wonderful, by the way. When there's footnotes, look at them. All right? And they'll all say, Dead Sea Scrolls says, sons of God. They put that because they have to. Well, that was updated. Okay, so here we go. Now this is the Song of Moses. This is and you'll see the tie-in to Babel. You saw that I had the Tower of Babel up there, right? This will tie in because this is what Moses is talking about. All right, and so when I heard this, it just blew my mind, and I had to make sure it was true, and I didn't believe it, and found out it was true. This is the Song of Moses given by the Lord for him to teach the children. And it prophesies against Israel. It tells them the whole history up until their time, then their fall and rebellion, but at the end, the Lord still won't let them go because they're his people. Okay? Give ear, O heavens, and I will speak, and let the earth hear the words of my mouth. May my teaching drop as the rain, my speech distill as the dew. Like gentle rain upon tender grass and like showers upon the herb, for I will proclaim the name of Yahweh. Ascribe greatness to our God, the rock. His work is perfect. Now, rock is used all through the Bible as a picture of God, just as the stars for angels. You see, their rock, and it's all through here, their rock is not like our rock. Okay? His work is perfect, for all his ways are justice. A God of faithfulness and without iniquity, just and upright is he. They have dealt corruptly with him. They are no longer his children because they are blemished. They are crooked and twisted. Sorry. I just had to, my computer freaked out a little bit there. They are crooked and twisted generation. Do you thus repay the Lord, you foolish and senseless people? Is not he your father who created you, who made you and established you? What is he talking about? Now he's giving the history of humanity. Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask your father, and he will show you, because they all know. Your elders, and they will tell you, when the Most High, El Elyon, the Most High, gave to the nations their inheritance, the nations. When he divided mankind, he fixed the borders of the peoples according to the number of the... Now, what do your translations say? Depending on your translation, there's a disagreement. Now, is that a small disagreement? That's a humongous, an absolute chasm of a disagreement. Where did we get it from? Well, the Masoretic Hebrew that came from the Jewish tradition passed down, who had rejected Messiah and rewrote Judaism, and they had a Septuagint burning in 100 AD, okay, because the Jewish believers were using the Septuagint as their Bible, okay. They had to edit this. The Dead Sea Scrolls, we found fragments from all three major languages of the time. Hebrew, which is the most important, right? Even if it was just Hebrew, it would be enough. If it was Aramaic, you could be like, well, maybe someone changed it. Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek all say sons of God. And in Hebrew, it's the Bana Ha Elohim. Does that sound familiar? Have we dealt with this before in this seminar so far? When I said it's never used as for humans. Why the sons of Israel? It doesn't even make any sense, because here, Israel doesn't exist yet. And that would mean there's only 12 nations. Doesn't work. And the rabbis all, if you look before the Second Temple period, it was the 70 nations. It was always 70. All right? Doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit. It doesn't go in the context at all. It was put there. But we have ironclad proof that it was changed. You see how important that is? This is the only part in the whole Bible of all, when we have in the Dead Sea Scrolls, which remember, why is the Dead Sea Scrolls so important? Because they showed the paper trail going back before Jesus, before Christianity. All right? And they show that we can trust our Bibles. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, every single book of the Old Testament canon of Ezra is in there except one. Esther. It's the only one that wasn't found. All right? And that just could be, they just didn't have it, or there's different reasons. All right? But Esther is very historical, but it was such important history that it's in our Hebrew canon. Right? But there's lots of portions of it are in Aramaic, and of course it doesn't actually mention God. Most people don't realize, but it doesn't. Okay? So, it's the only one that's not. All the other books of the Tanakh were found there. So, do the math in your head. What does this tell you? It was deliberately changed. That's really important. Now, if we look at it from its original, that we can now say definitively, what is being said here? The Lord ordered the nations. He separated them. He fixed their borders. The Lord is not one world, by the way, opposed to the Bible. Okay? He fixed the borders, and he put them in charge. He gave charge, each one, to a son of God, one of his loyal ones. He gave each one, according to the number, 70. All right? Now, and this goes in all of rabbinic tradition before, again, the Second Temple period of the 70 nations of the Gentiles. All right? So, he ordered them according to the sons of God. What does this mean? Now, we'll finish this. We'll look a little bit more, and then we'll come back to Babel. So, when did the Lord disperse mankind and separate them and give them fixed borders? You all know the answer. Babel. That's when he did it. Why? Because they were one world, one language, and they were had determined to assault the Lord to his face. They were rejecting him directly and throw off his shackles. It was a direct human rebellion. All right? They knew exactly what they were doing, and it was on purpose. All right? And because of that, the Lord... Now, we're going to look at the Babel story. So let's go finish this, because there's a little bit more in here. But this is the main part. All right? And, of course, Moses is laying out, and if you follow Romans chapter 1, Paul is following the same thing. They knew God, and then they continually to corrupt themselves and continue to rebel against them, and he handed them over. So this is what is called the disinheriting of the nations. He handed them over. All right. So there's a lot here. Do I have to go? Well, this part is cool, so we'll go to the next one. But it's long, so for the sake of time, we'll probably skip a little bit. All right. But if you look, and it's going through a lot of imagery here about the land. Curds from the herd and milk from the flock, with fat of lambs, rams of Bashan, and goats, the very finest of the wheat. And you drank flowing wine made from the blood of the grape. He's talking about Israel and the blessing that he poured out on them. But Jeshurun grew fat and kicked and grew fat, stout and sleek. Then he forsook God who made him and scoffed at the rock. So when Jesus said place our faith on the rock, that had a lot of imagery that they were all very used to. Scoffed at the rock of his salvation. They stirred him to jealousy with their strange Elohim. That word again. With abominations, they provoked him to anger. They sacrificed to... Now, a lot of our English translations will say demons, because they don't know what else to say. Now, demon comes from the Greek and then into the Latin, which was a daimon, then daimonio, Greek and then Latin, and then, of course, brings us our English kind of transliteration of it, which is demon. All right? And they didn't know really what to do with this word, so they tried to come up with the best thing that they could. The shadim. All right? Now, shadim, if you look it up in most Hebrew lexicons, you'll see that it says, one of the ways it's translated is territorial spirits. Territorial powers. All right? Anyway, there's a lot of history, but in the Hebrew, it's not always distinguished between angelic forces or demonic forces. The point is rebellious, wicked forces. Okay? But you see, they sacrificed to Elohim that were strange. I mean, they worshipped Elohim that were strange, and then they sacrificed to the Shadim that were no gods, to gods they had never known, to new gods that they had come recently. Guess what word's being used here? You guys all know. That's wondering why I had to teach you about this word. Elohim. All right? To new gods that had come recently, whom your fathers had never dreaded. Now, and of course it does seem to be different between the strange Elohim and then the Shadim. So the Shadim might be demons. And that's where some theory, and it could be. All right? So there's nothing wrong with our English Bibles putting it there. But we're doing the best to try to explain this Hebrew word. All right? Now, but you see two groups there. Anyway, we'll move on. You were unmindful of the rock that bore you, and forgot the God who gave you birth. The Lord saw it and spurned them because of the provocation of his sons and daughters. And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end will be, for they are a perverse generation, children in whom is no faithfulness. When Peter says, save yourselves from this perverse generation, they all knew what that meant. They have made me jealous with what is no. There it is again. And you're like, what? Yeah, but see, in our naturalized mind, we see this and we're like, yeah, he's saying, they abandoned, provoked me to anger with idols. What is no God? So what God is really saying here is they're all just pretend. They're all just childish toys. There's no power to them. It's just pretend. That's how a lot of Christians read this. Because, God said they are no God. This is a declaration of his authority as the creator. They are created beings just like you are. There is only one God. So one of the things with what I'm going to teach now is I'm going to show you how a lot of the ancient pagan pantheons came about. All right? And someone would say, well then, and if you've ever watched any of the Christian historical things on the History Channel, I don't know what equivalent you have here, probably something like that, right? Oh yeah, the History Channel. And they love to get on these God-hating professors, and they'll talk about how, and I remember watching one years ago, and it worked me up before I even knew some of this stuff, and this guy on there with all these titles, and he says, well, the Christian tradition, that came in from Judaism of monotheism. If you really look back at Moses and you look at the earliest of the Hebrew scriptures, even Moses was not a monotheist. And then I was so angry. I was like, what? How could you? I didn't get it. But he was bringing something out that I didn't know, but he was twisting it completely. All right? Because in my mind, that had not really understood the supernatural worldview of the Bible, even though I thought I did, I saw monotheism as only one God up there. And we know there's some angels, and then there's the devil, the bad guy. We thought all the gods of the nations were fake. They were just the devil, maybe the one bad guy lying in all the different ways. Right? And that's kind of how most Christians think. Isn't that true? All right? Well, you cannot go through it over and over again and be honest with the text and say that that's what it says, because so many times, including Moses over and over again, mentions these beings as if they're real. Not that they're just play toys and pretend. Okay? So now you could say, well, you take this passage, and there's other, like Isaiah will go on about the different gods of the nations and their judgments. I'm going to show you the passage. And then he'll do one of my favorites where they go to a tree, they cut it down, they make a little wood idol, they cook with it, and they all this, and then they'll fashion a god, and they'll bow down to it. Someone with just no God. And he mocks, and it's great. I love it. One of my favorites. But then we look at that, and we'll take that out, and we'll say, oh, well, that just means that all the idols and all that's all just pretend. Now, Paul says in the New Testament that when he's talking about you cannot drink from the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons too, they're sacrificing to demons. And, of course, in his mind, he probably had Shadim, but he's using the Greek. All right? Anyway, so see, you could twist it to say, well, even the Jews were polytheistic. if you look at the Torah, that there's a pantheon. Wrong answer. No, there is no pantheon. How do you reconcile all these, this right here, so if you don't, the other option to what I'm saying is that then we have a schizophrenic God who says one thing and then says the exact same thing a couple passages later. Is that the right way to interpret it? He's saying, God didn't know, sacrifice unto them. He's using words that are real things, and then Elohim, and then, they're just playthings, it's all pretend. There is no one but me. And then, so then there's some really, it pits the Bible against the Bible. It pits Moses against Moses. Has lots of problems. Or the simple answer, the easy one. This is a declarative statement that there is only one almighty beginning and end, eternal one. And as he says, has not my hand made all these things? Just as human beings rebelled against him, his heavenly family rebelled against him. Does everybody understand that? So from the point of view of Yahweh, the Almighty, the beginning and the end, all of his created beings are his, they're not gods. Now, is Satan a god? I can see Jim's head's turning. He's going through all the passages in the New Testament where the God of this world, is that in the New Testament? Who's being referenced there? Is that a pantheon? No. But is he called the little g God? Yeah, he is. Okay. Is he real? Yeah, he is. That one we know. See, that one every Christian knows. All right? The whole world lives under the sway of the wicked one. Is that in the New Testament? Yes, it is. All right? So, point being, the biblical perspective is the little g gods are not all pretend and not fairy tales. There's real beings who had real authority. There is one creator God. They are created beings who've rebelled just as humans are his created beings who rebelled. Does everybody understand that? And I could really prove this to you a million ways, but I don't have time to do all of that. But I think this is adequate. Hopefully it is. All right? They've made me jealous of what is God. They have provoked me to anger with their idols, so I will make them jealous with those who are of no people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation, for a fire is kindled by my anger, and it burns to the depths of Sheol. Okay? Some translations will have grave there because they're just trying to dumb it down. Sheol is really in Hebrew is the afterlife or the place of the dead where you go when you die. And of course Jesus uses Hades, but Jesus wasn't speaking in Greek. His words were translated. He would have said Sheol in Luke. But we're translating Hades when he's talking about Lazarus, right? The poor and the rich man, and he goes off to be in Abraham's bosom. And both says Hades, and then the rich man goes off in the other part of Hades, and he's under torment. Everybody familiar with that? All right, Jesus has given us an incredible glimpse there. So, but that Sheol word is what the concept really is, and that's what the word Jesus would have used. All right? Devours the earth and its increase, and sets on fire the foundations of the mountains, and I will heap disasters upon them. I will spread my arrows on them. They shall be wasted with hunger and devoured by plague and poisonous pestilence. I will send the teeth of the beasts against them, with the venom of things that crawl in the dust. Outdoors the sword shall bereave, and indoors, indoors terror. My computer, when I go down to click it, keeps freaking out on me. For young men and women alike, the nursing child with a man of gray hairs, I have said, I will cut them to pieces. I will wipe them from the human memory. Had I not feared provocation by the enemy, lest their adversaries should misunderstand, lest they should say, our hand is triumphant. It was not the Lord who did all this, not Yahweh who did all this. For they are a nation void of... Now, it started with the history of the nations up until Israel. He ordered the nations according to the sons of God, but Jacob is his allotted inheritance. Okay? So, let me go back to the beginning. Here, no, not the second frame. Number them according to the sons of God, but the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob his allotted inheritance. So the Lord hands over the nations. We're going to get to this part at the end and make that clear. Lord hands over the nations. And what happens right after the Babel story in the book of Genesis? And the Lord called Abram. That's the very next thing. All right? His own personal people to represent his personal name. Amen. His inheritance. Israel is the Lord's portion. His remnant, you could say. He handed over the nations. But let's finish up Deuteronomy 32. All right. I have to skip a couple frames because I'm taking too long here. So it's all good, but let's go to the last frame because there's a part at the end I want you to see. Well, actually, now I'm regretting that. Compassion on the servants, and he sees their power is gone. Well, actually, no. See, I can't do that because there's important stuff in here. So let's go here. This is where I left off, I think. All right. There is no understanding in them. If they were wise, they would understand this. They would discern the latter end. How could one have chased 1,000 and have put 10,000 to flight? Unless their rock had sold them and the Lord had given them up. Again, their rock. What does that mean? Their God. Okay? He's making the point that Israel's rebellion against him was so ridiculous. Okay? And the Lord had given them up, for their rock is not our rock, and our enemies are by themselves. For their vine comes from the vine of Sodom and from the fields of Gomorrah. Their grapes are the grapes of poison. Their clusters are bitter. Their wine is the poison of serpents and the cruel venom of asps. Is not this laid up in store with me, sealed up in my treasuries? Vengeance is mine, and recompense for the time when their foot shall slip. For the day of their calamity is at hand, and their doom comes swiftly. For the Lord will vindicate his people. The nations, he hands them over, they rebel. His allotted portion, Israel, he blesses them, and then they turn on him and worship the little g, newer gods of the nations that their fathers had not known. Okay? And provoke him to anger and jealousy. And then, of course, he will pour out on them, but then, of course, at the end, he'll vindicate his people. Just like all the prophets, and this follows all the way through. You look at Jeremiah, look at Ezekiel, you look at Isaiah. The Lord is a broken husband whose heart is broken, Hosea. Amen. And he is angry and he will punish them but in the end, Israel will always be a nation before me. If the sun gave up his light and the moon was fixed order, would Israel not be a nation? But see, this Psalm 32 lays the whole thing out. And it's already come back to this part. For Yahweh will vindicate his people and have compassion on his servants. Why? Because he flipped back to the nations and they're worshiping now of fallen gods. When he sees that power is gone and there is none remaining, bond or free, then he will say, where are their Elohim? The rock in which they took refuge. You see how many times the rock imagery here. Okay? Who ate the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their drink offering. Let them rise up and help you. Let them be your protection. See now that I, even I, am he, and there is no God besides me. What is the point being said here? When clearly already he's mentioned that some of these were real things, not all pretend. That there is one almighty, eternal God. We are monotheistic. Moses was monotheistic. But yet, that does not mean that the little g gods of the nations were pretend. You see how we conflate that? They are rebellious sons of God. Is that making sense? And we'll show you more and try to bring that into context. Okay. Where did I leave off here? There's no one that can let me go back. See now that I, even I am, there is no God besides me. I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal. And there is no one that can deliver outside of my hand. What is that? That's a declaration of I am the Almighty One. So we talked about last night, Egypt, right? The sorcerers did the first read. They come to the Pharaoh. What do they say? This is the hand of the Almighty. We're out of our league. We're not taking on one of the other gods of the nations here. That's what they said. They didn't get saved. They were just stating a fact. They all understood that there is an Almighty One, the top, the Creator, the God of Noah. They all knew that. All right. So, deliver out of my hand, for I lift up my hand to heaven and swear, as I live forever, if I sharpen my flashing... I love this passage. It's one of my favorites. If I sharpen my flashing sword, and my hand takes hold on judgment, I will take vengeance on my adversaries. Who are they? That's an important question. And will repay those who hate me. I will make my arrows drunk with blood, and my sword shall devour flesh, with the blood of the slain and the captives, from the long-haired heads of the enemy. Interesting passage. Rejoice with him, O heavens, and bow down to him, all Elohim. There it is again. Why would they have to bow down to him if they're not real? If that was all pretend, this would be a very dumb thing to say. It wouldn't fit. Does everybody get that? See how important that is? Okay. For he avenges the blood of his children and takes vengeance on his adversaries. He repays those who hate him and cleanses his people's land. Hallelujah. Amen. Now there's a ton in there again. I tried to do it quickly. Now we're going to look at the Babel story. Because Moses, he came down, separated the nations, fixed the borders, and ordered them according to the sons of God. All right? Now, and of course he started his salvation plan, his inheritance with Abraham. He handed over the nations. And if you're wondering about handing over the nations, think about this. Actually, let's read Genesis 11, then I'll go there. I want to talk about Moses speaking to the Lord about the Lord wanting to hand them over to an angel. It's an important passage when it comes to this. Okay, Genesis chapter 11. This is Babel. Now the whole earth had one language and the same words, and as people migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens. And let us make a name for ourselves." This is really important. "Lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth." Who told them to divide and spread out? Did he say that to Noah and his sons? This was a direct defiance of him. If we do that, we're weaker. We should stand together against him. This was a direct human rebellion. See, a lot of people, if everybody just knew the Lord, they would love him. That is not true. That's never been true. They all knew him here. They all knew who he was. This was a direct rebellion in his face. Now we know it's not every single human that joined this. We have Abram's family. Okay? But enough of them did. And we kind of look at it as they were ignorant. No, they weren't ignorant. This was a direct rebellion. And of course, is some of the other apocryphal writings and things and pseudepigraphal writings talk about Nimrod, and we're going to talk about Nimrod a little bit because it's important. But that they would make this statement that he was angry because of what the Lord did to their fathers, what the Lord had done to in the flood, and of course what he did to the Nephilim, who they saw as the heroes of old, who they venerated. Where did they get this from? Ham. That's a whole nother, that's where they got it from, okay? Ham was cursed, okay? Now, so I guess the simple point is they know what they're doing here. They know who they're attacking. They're angry at him. And they're purposely trying to make a name for themselves. All right? All right. The name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth. And Yahweh came down to see the city and the tower which the children of man had built. And the Lord said, behold, they are one people, and they have all one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do. Oh, yeah. And nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. That's an incredible statement. And we live in a time where we see exactly what the Lord meant by that. Does he know what we're capable of? He made us. He knows that when man unites together in rebellion, they can be powerful. Now, he's not scared of us, but he's scared of us completely being taken over and being destroyed. He knows the capacity that he created in man. And one of the other lessons of the book of Job is that the adversary did not at all. He thought he understood us, and he didn't. And the Lord was teaching him a lesson. You don't understand them at all. I do. I know. I know my creation. I know what they can do. I know that they can be loyal. I know that they can love me. Amen. That's one of the major lessons that the adversary had to learn. All right? So when the Lord says nothing they propose to do will be impossible for them, that was a serious statement. Come, let us. Now, your English translations say come, let us, just like in the beginning of Genesis. Us, you see, let us. And I used to always interpret this just like the way I was taught. That's the Trinity talking to each other. They're not all on the same page. They have to get on the same page. The three of them have to sit down and discuss, That's ridiculous. But yes, that's all we had. We didn't understand it. Okay? I had to go, oh my goodness, I taught that for years, and when I was confronted with it, that Elohim is used all over the Bible in many, many different ways. And then when I actually thought about if we really do mean it that way, what does that say? The Trinity has to get on the same page because they're not always on the same page. Think about the ramifications of that. They have to talk to one another and say, hey, this is what I think we should do. You think so? The Holy Spirit's like, I don't know. I don't know if we should do that. Okay? Yeah. This is not the Trinity talking to one another. This is the Lord talking to his council. That's who he's talking to. That's the only thing that makes any sense. And again, it's all through the Bible. I gave you multiple pictures of the sons of God who he's talking to. All right? So come let us. Who is he speaking to? His council. The divine council. I'll just put it that way. Go down. Let me start again. Come let us go down there and confuse their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of the whole earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from there the Lord dispersed them over the face of the whole earth. And later on, it's Babylon comes back and tries to reclaim the secret knowledge, and Babylon's claim to fame was that they had secret knowledge from the Apkallu, half God, half human, divine knowledge, which set them apart. And they tried to come back. Babylon was built on defiance, trying to come back to Babel, which is the end of the book of Revelation. The end of the book. Does the book of Revelation, the end of the Bible, does it mention Babylon? How many times? Multiple times. Was it imagery that they understood? Yes, it is. Now, I'm not going down that. That's a humongous thing itself, but it's a cool one. But it does come up in the story. All right, so what happened? Now, that's where we're going to go into Nimrod, but I want to lay it simply for you. Babel happens. They're standing as one and uniting against him. Directly, defiance. The Lord comes down, disperses them. He is anti-one world because it's easier for the fallen. At that point, it was easier for Satan to control when they're condensed. Why do the cities always become the most evil? You notice that through history? Where does all the evil get condensed to? Cities, always. Condensed power. That's why. That's why. Why did the Lord want them to spread out over the whole earth? Why? You ever thought about that? What's the reason? You want us to live in Antarctica? You really want us to live in a desert? Why? Because the Lord knows things we don't know, right? He had a reason for that. But I could simply say condensed power. They were all together. They stood in defiance, and he separated them, fixed the borders. Just as we see Israel, where he gave each tribe its allotted inheritance, he gave the nations their allotted place. And then he handed them over, which was a judgment, not a blessing. And if you're wondering, how is that a judgment? Well, he dealt with them directly, and now he's given them over. Now, a story that really brings this point out is Moses, where the Lord says to Moses, they're going out of Egypt, the whole calf has already happened, right? And the Levites were chosen as the priests, right after the Lord gives them the 10 Commandments, right? They're coming out and they just keep rebelling. And the Lord says to Moses, you know what, Moses? I'm going to hand you over to my angel. I'm going to hand you over. He'll bring you in. But I can't stay with you, lest I turn and wipe them out. Now, did the Lord say that? That's a pretty incredible thing. But what does Moses say? Don't do that, Lord, please. You must come with us. I mean, your angel's cool and all, but we want you. We need you. The angel was a judgment that was handing them over. I am handing you over. I am not going to be personally the one speaking and leading you. It was a judgment. This was a judgment on the nations. Not a blessing, a judgment. But what I also want to throw out there is that this again was another test for the angels, another test for the sons of God. And a bunch of them failed. And that becomes very clear through the rest of Scripture, which I'm going to try to prove to you now. All right? And I'm going to give you a little history of Babel because I think it's important. Because Babel, you notice how I'm indecisive, I can't pick one. If I don't think about it, I say Babel, but if I think about it, then I say Babel. So that's how it works. All right. I want to give you a little history just because you need to know the history is important and it's real. And we have lots of secular proof that it's real. Now, this is Nimrod. Genesis chapter 10. Right? The sons of Ham, Cush, Egypt, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush. Now, this is the different nations that the Lord divided. The sons of Ramah, Sheba, and Dedan. Cush fathered Nimrod. He was the first on earth to be a mighty man. And actually, it says he became a Gibor, the Giborim, the mighty men of old, men of renown. Now, Josephus, you all heard of him? All right, famous Jewish historian in Rome who is cited in almost all ancient history because he talks about it all and had incredible knowledge at the time. All right, and then, of course, he wrote to the Jewish history, laid it out separately. All right, Antiquities of the Jews. He mentions Nimrod as being a giant. All right, a giant. And connects this word Giborim to the giants. Okay, gigantes, you could say in Greek. All right, so it does say directly, he was not one, he was the first to become one after the flood. Right? Very interesting. How did he become one? We don't know. I've heard different theories that Satan entered him and fused with him. A great scholar, Dr. Douglas Hamp, really dives down into this. It's very interesting. And he even talks about DNA, and he goes through a lot of modern DNA, things that have happened, even with people taking different organs from people. And that they've discovered now that when they do that, they will look and then put you under, after you got this organ, and then they would test your DNA, you change into the person that you got the organ from. Your DNA is wiped out and you become the other person. Just interesting. There's a lot of theory, but very interesting stuff. So there's different theories. You know, Satan, in the one is Satan entered him and he and made a deal with him. And you said, can Satan enter people? Well, Satan entered Judas. All right? You say, could a fallen angel have come? Again, one of the sons of God, right here again. Did this? But it says he became one. Now, again, could it just mean that maybe he was just a big, powerful man? There's definitely something else going on here. And again, Josephus, again, is not authoritative. He's just a historian. But his information, he was a giant. And there's other ancient sources that say that as well. Okay? So I'm just throwing that out to you. Because Moses did say the Nephilim were on those days and also afterward. They come back. How do they come back? I will give you some theories. All right? But let's look at some of the history here. He was the first on earth to be a mighty man, Gabor. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore, it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. We look at it before the Lord. Well, that's also what it said about Babel. The point is it's in the Lord. In front of the Lord, this is what he became. Meaning he knows who the Lord is. This is defiance. And Nimrod, it's written, especially in Jasher, gives a lot of details about Nimrod. He was incredibly wicked and evil, just beyond. And he was incredibly powerful, and no one could stand against him. All right? The beginning of his kingdom was Babel. Yep, he founded it. Then Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. From that land he went into Assyria and built Nineveh, Rehoboth, Elkala, and Rezin between Nineveh and Kala. That is the great city. Now, I have that in there just to show you what it says in the Hebrew and then give you some history. This is comes from the Turkish Museum, all right? And this goes all the way back. This is thousands of years old, all right? And it was in the treasure of Ashurbanipal, okay? In the Assyrian king. And this is an ancient statue of, anybody know who it is? Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh. Ever heard of the Epic of Gilgamesh? It's the oldest writing that we have in all of human history. It predates the Torah. Now, the Torah, again, was also a compilation of things that have already been written before, but we have the Torah when we can follow the paper trail. But this was before that in Mesopotamia, all right, where Abraham came from. There's a lot of history about him, all right? And then you have Sumerian, and of course there he's called Ninurta, who became a god, the son of Enlil. Very interesting. Randall Price, some of you know who Randall Price is? Ever heard of him? He's a great Christian archaeologist. He's written tons of books on Jerusalem and the temple. A great guy. He theorizes a connection between Nimrod. Nimrod is, again, one of those things, it's not a proper name, it's an insult. That's who Gilgamesh really is. All right? Archaeological, this is his writing, so I'm just going to give you a quote. Archaeological excavations in ancient Mesopotamia reveal striking parallels between the Bible's King Nimrod and the ancient Semitic ruler Sargon the Great, thus confirming the biblical king's historicity, which is the same guy. The Old Testament mentions Nimrod 4 times, calling him a mighty one on the earth, a Gabor, founder of the Assyrian Empire. But who was he? The ancient Jewish writers Philo, Alexandria, and Flavius Josephus suggested Nimrod was a giant who opposed God and the tyrant behind the construction of the Tower of Babel. Included within Nimrod's kingdom, the Sumerian cities, and it goes through that stuff that we know. And then he makes the connection, if you follow the story of Gilgamesh, it's long, so I'm trying to sum it up. And Gilgamesh was a half god, half man who was angry about the flood, and there's just a lot of connections. Now, we can't say definitively that it is, but a bunch of good biblical scholars believe that that connection is too strong to ignore. But either way, even the Epic of Gilgamesh, guess what's in it? Comes out of it the story of the Apkallu, half god, half man, who had secret knowledge, all right, who gave it to the Babylonians. It's where and Babel, and also a great flood where the Creator God was angry at some of his sons had done and what they had brought. Does that sound familiar? Why? Because it lines up with the Bible. Because the oldest ancient history we have tells you, oh, by the way, the Bible's true. You think that would be important? Wouldn't that be important? I think that's important. But again, in the pagan versions, the bad guys are the good guys and the good guys are the bad guys. The Creator God is mean and he flooded the earth and look what he did. The Apkallu, now this is the Apkallu here, ancient Mesopotamia, Sumerian hybrid gods. Okay, they have this is the oldest traditions. And a lot of these things were found in the ancient world that they venerated. And like I said, this was some of the things from the Museum of Assurbanipal, going all the way back to 325 BC. Okay? This is their history. Then you have the 7 sages of the Apkallu of Mesopotamia. Now again, I hit the button. I'm not showing you this to say, like, oh, this is amazing. I'm showing you this to say secular history lines up with the Bible. Also the supernatural interpretation of it. The naturalized seed of Cain and all of that stuff totally destroys the Bible and also indicts God's character. It truly does. But I find it very encouraging that the oldest secular history that we have actually lines up with the biblical narrative. Don't you find that? I think that's important to know. Okay? And of course I have it in here to back up some of the things I'm saying that stuff is real. In the ancient world all believed it. All right. And of course I have here, I don't have time to go through all the 7 sages and all of that. Kyle, we're close to the time of our break, right? Oh, see, you said 15. I said, let's see, 15. 15 is 12, 1. It's 3 o'clock. I can figure it out. Just take me a little bit of time. Okay. Ancient Babylonian tablet provides compelling evidence that the Tower of Babel did exist. This is this is one of the largest secular historical websites. There is the largest one from tons of secular archaeologists. And you can look all this stuff up, okay? And this one here, this is where I have the theory of the Epic of Gilgamesh and a lot of the history. I'm just kind of throwing out bits and pieces. I have whole write-up articles here with lots of information in my notes, which if I went through all of it all, that would be really long. So I'm trying to just give you the gist. Okay? And then there's an inscription here that they found on this tablet. It's the oldest one we possibly found in ancient Mesopotamia. All right? And on it you have the fragments talk about the father of all the gods was wicked. Of him, his heart was evil. Babylon brought to subjection, and the great, he confounded their speech. Now there's fragments, so there's a bit. He confounded their speech. Babylon brought to subjection, and great, he confounded their speech. The strong place, tower, all the day they founded, to their strong place in the night entirely he made an end. In his anger also, word thus he poured out. Scatter abroad he set his face. He gave this command. Their counsel was confused. The course he broke fixed the sanctuary. Now it's fragmented, but those are all things that they could translate from ancient Sumerian, the oldest possible history we have. And what does this tablet talk about? The mean old creator God who made all the little g gods, who was angry and flooded the earth and killed everybody. That's what it's about. Do you think? See, I think this is important information that Christians need to know. All right? Do not be afraid of these things. Backs up the Bible. But it also backs up the supernatural interpretation. The correct worldview of Scripture. All right? So that's why I have it in there. We've got to move on. I could spend a lot of time on that, but I threw it in there because I thought these things were important. That part, and of course, what is it about? The Creator God, rebellion, Tower of Babel, him confusing and pushing them out and separating them. And, of course, then the Apkallu story in ancient Mesopotamia, which was their Sumerian demigods who were hybrids, beings. And then in the Akkadian versions as well. Those are two of the most ancient languages that we have in all of history. Okay? Stories line up. They both have the same. Of course, in Israel, we have it too. But the Creator God is the Almighty Good One. and the ones who rebelled against him and their punishment are the bad guys. Okay? See, the story flipped around. And that's really important. Okay. I have a thing here on all the 7 different sages and the Apkallu story. But, one other important detail before we're done with this, with the ancient Mesopotamia, the Apkallu, the ancient Sumerian and Akkadian, all that, is also what both of their versions, the oldest ones we have in human history, line up another detail with one Enoch. They taught mankind secret knowledge, technology of all different kinds. That's what made Babylon so powerful. Okay? Does that line up? Yes, it does. And that's another important detail. So, technology given to man by fallen angels and obviously hybrid, you could say progeny of fallen angels. All right? That is important, and you find that through the whole ancient world. Okay. So I got to move on from that. Again, I said this is an overview. I've done bits and portions of this in lots of different presentations where I have more detail. I'm trying to give an overview, which there's a lot of information to overview. Okay. So, now, I want to point out, I'm going to start getting into, I show you the Lord has ordered the nations according to the sons of God. But I haven't gotten into the rebellion part of it yet. Because I said this is the third angelic rebellion. And we went through the first 2 and all that happened because of them. We know now that the Lord ordered the nations, handed them over a judgment, and put in charge of each one. Okay? Gave a charge, I should say. I said that before too. Gave charge to each one, their portion, and they would rule over that territory and over that nation. Okay? Now, this is, I'm just going to go, we're going to Daniel now. And some incredible things start coming out in Daniel. Now, again, I taught Daniel, Dad has been teaching Daniel for so long. We read this, we spent a lot of time in it. And in Daniel, there happens to be some things going on that, again, we didn't really have the worldview to completely understand. Which in Daniel, you have right in your face the third angelic rebellion, and it's a major part of the book. When you have the proper context, it comes alive. Now, before this, we knew that when Paul's talking about principalities and powers, the only answer we would say is, well, he's talking about, like in Daniel with the prince of Persia and the prince of Greece, and that's all we had. And you know what? That's right. It's just, there's a lot more to it than that. Okay? All right. I saw in the visions of my head as I lay in bed. This is Daniel, I believe, chapter 4. And behold, a watcher, a holy one, came down from heaven. He proclaimed aloud and said thus. Now, I told you I'm getting to the rebellion, but we're starting here. Chop down the tree and lop off its branches, strip off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the beast flee from under it and birds from under its branches. Now, he said, okay, a watcher. What's a watcher? Well, by the end of this, you'll get what it is, because he says, by decree of the watchers. Okay? But I just got to make a connection here. There's another reason why I need this in here. That term, again, is a term used in 1 Enoch of the watchers who were charged by the Lord to watch over mankind. The watchers. All right? So, Daniel is the only other place where that same Hebrew word is used. Okay. I saw in the vision of my head as I lay in bed. All right? This is dreams. Visions. Night. Some say night visions. It's dreams. And behold, a watcher, a holy one, came down from heaven. He proclaimed aloud and said thus, Chop down the tree, lop off its branches, strip off its leaves, and scatter its fruit. Let the beasts flee from under it, and the birds from its branches. But leave the stump and its roots in the earth, bound with a band of iron and bronze amid the tender grass of the field. Let him be wet with the dew of heaven. Let his portion be with the beasts in the grass of the earth. Let his mind be changed from a man's, and let a beast's mind be given to him. Now, if you're familiar with this story, you know this part, but there's something in here that's deep and that we just skip over because we didn't have the framework to deal with it. This one should really stand out to you. And let 7 periods of time pass over him. The sentence is by decree. It's an open book test. The sentence is by the decree of the watchers. You mean they had authority? Yeah. The sons of God that the Lord put in charge have authority. They're not the final authority, but they have authority. Now, these are not rebellious ones here. Okay? Is by decree of the watchers, the decision by the word of the holy ones, to the end that the living may know that the Most High, El Elyon, rules the kingdoms of men and gives it to whom he will and sets over it the lowliest of men. Amen. Now these are righteous, loyal watchers that he put over the nations, have not rebelled against him. They do his bidding. They came to him and they thought that Nebuchadnezzar needs to be dealt with. And the Lord, it's his authority here. You see, it's done the proper way. They're not the final authority. See, the rebellion happens when some of them start claiming their own authority. They step out of their authority given them. All right? But these watchers are following their authority. It's by decree of the watchers, but they have the blessing of the El Elyon to carry this out. Pretty awesome, isn't it? Now, again, the understanding of Deuteronomy 32 and the division and handing over of the nations under the sons of God brings this all out. When you don't have that, you're kind of scratching, trying to make sense out of it. Oh, well, there's powerful angels, and there's a lot more to it, okay? This dream I, King Nebuchadnezzar, saw, and O Belteshazzar, tell me the interpretation, because all the wise men of the kingdom may not be able to make known to me the interpretation, but you are able, for the spirit of the holy gods is in you. Is Nebuchadnezzar saved? See, that's how us Christians think. Nebuchadnezzar came to the realization that the God of Israel is the El Elyon. But he didn't give up his little g gods. He didn't. See, that we don't know how to fit that in our brains, in our modern Darwinian Christian brains. Yes, I'm saying that on purpose. Because we don't have the proper, full, supernatural, biblical worldview. All right? Now, that's one now. That one wasn't a rebellious one, but it showed their authority. It again goes with what we just looked at of Deuteronomy chapter 32. All right? Now, here's another one here. Now, these are in here just to start showing the authority of where we get this understanding of what we would call these archon angels. Okay? Now, I would always was taught, again, when I was young, there's multiple archangels and Satan was one of them. Remember we taught that, right? If you've been around Christian doctrine for a long time, you've heard that. We know Michael's one of them, right? But that archon is in the New Testament, and Paul uses it, all right, for these angels with authority. Very much correlates with from Daniel, the watchers. Okay? And of course, he also uses princes. And we see that used by the prophets as well, for these beings behind the thrones. Do you know there's beings behind the thrones? That's what the Bible tells us, and that's what we're also going to see in the book of Daniel. At that time shall arise Michael. This is also who I believe is the restrainer. And this is what's being mentioned by Paul in Thessalonians when he says, until the restrainer is taken out of the way. But when Dad is here, I'll let you explain all of that to you. Well, Kyle will too. I'm sure he already has. Okay? But I can't do eschatology lesson even though I always want to. Okay? At that time shall arise Michael, the great prince, who has what? Charge of your people. Who watches over the Lord's people, who is in charge to protect them and defend them and watch over them. Michael. All right. Now, we know Michael, would say he is, so the point is Michael is one of these who is charged. Okay? Now, now we start seeing rebellion here. Okay? It's the only way to understand this. It's here. All Bible teachers and Bible students know about these passages. You just have to have the right grid to see it. And some of you that already know these passages will say, oh yeah, that makes sense. Daniel, now these are eschatological passages, but I'm not using them for eschatology. Okay? Was the only one who saw the vision. Those who were with me did not see it, but such terror overwhelmed me that they fled and hid themselves. So I was left alone, gazing at the great vision. I had no strength left. My face turned deathly pale, and I was helpless. Then I heard him speaking, and as I listened to him, I fell into a deep sleep, my face to the ground. A hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees. He said, Daniel, you who are highly esteemed. Imagine getting that title. Consider carefully the words I am about to speak to you, and stand up, for I have now been sent to you. And when he said this to me, I stood up trembling. Then he continued, do not be afraid, Daniel, since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard. Now, this is another one of those stories that I saw and knew was here, and thought, we're missing something. Okay? This is Daniel chapter 10. Your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. See why I always put the passages up? Because you need to see it with your own eyes. So you can listen to people give their opinions all day long. It changes when you see it. Because my opinion doesn't matter. When you see it for yourself, it changes everything. That's why we do Bible school. All right? The prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, one of the watchers, the loyal ones, the glorious ones, came to help me because I was detained there with the king of Persia. What is going on? You mean, so this powerful being of Persia stopped, well, we know this is Gabriel because he tells us later, so I'll give that to you, and wouldn't let him get the message to Daniel. Now, why would he think he has the power to do that? Because he's making a case, this is my territory. I'm the authority here. But Gabriel's coming in the name of El Elyon, and he doesn't want to listen to him, so then Michael has to come, and they're like, oh, wait. The higher authority has overruled me. That's what's going on here. You say, so the prince of Persia thinks he can do what he wants. He's doing his own thing. Yeah. Okay. One of the chief princes came to help me because I was detained there with the king of Persia. Now I have come to explain to you what will happen to your people in the future, for the vision concerns a time yet to come. While he was saying this to me, I bowed down with my face toward the ground and was speechless. Now this is a really powerful part of Scripture for an entirely different teaching series that I'm going to try to skip. Keyword, try. Face toward the ground and was speechless. Then the one who looked like a man touched my lips. Now, Gabriel looks like a man. Comes as a man. We just get that little detail, but I think it's a cool one, right? And I opened my mouth and began to speak. I said to the one standing before me, I am overcome with anguish because of the vision, my Lord, and I feel very weak. How can I serve your servant talk with you, my Lord? My strength is gone, and I can hardly breathe. Again, the one who looked like a man touched me and gave me strength. Do not be afraid. You are highly esteemed. All right, I'm just going to move on. I don't have time. He said, peace. Be strong now. Be strong. When he spoke to me, I was strengthened and said, speak, my Lord, since you have given me strength. So he said, do you know I have come to you? Now, again, this is eschatological, but I'm not doing eschatology here in this seminar. But what's in here? Soon I will return to fight against the prince of Persia. Who's that? And when I go, the prince of Greece will come, prophesied by the prophets. And of course, Daniel gets more in, the little goat later on, Alexander, who in his own writings, by the way, we actually have that information, believed that he had a powerful spirit behind him that told him what to do and where to go and how to conquer. You know why? Because he did. Does everybody get how important that is? He did. That's why. All right. Soon I will return to fight against the prince of Persia, and when I go, the prince of Greece will come. But first I will tell you what is written in the book of truth. Is there books in heaven? Do they chronicle? And Gabriel gets to look at it. No one supports me against them except Michael, your prince, the Archon of Israel. Now, what do we have here? We have 3 princes, 3 watcher angels who have authority, and 2 of them are warring with each other for territory. You see this? It's very simple. It's right there. Persia and Greece and their princes are going to come, and the Lord has decreed judgment on Persia. And now this other washer angel is going to come and lead Alexander, a pagan, to conquer. What is going on? You should see your faces right now. It's great. And you're thinking, that's in the Bible. Is this in the Bible? Somebody check. Make sure it's true. Look it up. You should look it up. That's why you need to see it for yourself. All right. Now, let's go to Jude. One chapter, and it is the gift that keeps on giving. Now, remember, his name is actually Yehuda, Judah. And in Greek, it would have been Judas, and they didn't want to name one of the books Judas for obvious reasons, so it's Jude. Okay? Now, we already did one of the parts. He's going through all the different rebellions. He goes the world rebellions, and then goes through the religious rebellions. That's what I have to do when I get home, the religious rebellions. Okay? I covered this just the last Sunday before I left. I'm going to do much more detail there if you're more interested in it. Yeah, in like manner, these people also, relying on their dreams, defile the flesh, reject authority. These are the false teachers he's talking about. He's talking about quote-unquote Christian teachers who are false prophets. That's the context. Reject authority and blaspheme the glorious ones. Angelic majesties, it can also be translated. Some of your English translations will put that in. The watchers. But when the archangel Michael, contending with the devil, the original rebel, was disputing about the body of Moses, he did not presume to pronounce a blasphemous judgment, but said, "The Lord rebuke you." But these people blaspheme all that they do not understand, and they are destroyed by all that they, like unreasoning animals, understand instinctively. What is this about? Well, this comes from the Assumption of Moses. We get that mentioned by Origen, who wasn't a good guy, but in his writings, he mentions where this comes from. It's also can be called the Testament of Moses. All right? And that they all knew that Jude is writing it, like everybody knows this information. But if you look at the story and Moses dies, is that in there? No, it isn't. It's another one of those, it's not in the story. We don't get it in the end of Deuteronomy. Moses, the Lord buries Moses, and we don't hear anything else about it. All right? But Jude is writing it that everybody knows this information. But what I'm bringing out, I'm not just talking about, see, that one's about authority, and I spent a lot of time on that. So if you want to listen to the Jude series, download the Banner of Love app, and you'll be able to watch that. Also, you can just go to Rumble, but it's there. All right? I think, what did I name that series? Contending for the Faith. All right? So, anyway, I really get into the part about slandering angelic majesties and authority. Okay? But I don't have enough time to do that, but I want to show you that this is here. It's right here. You have the background. This comes alive. Without it, you're slander angelic majesties. What is he talking about? But these people blaspheme, although they don't understand. Okay, I already read that part, so let's move on. He's getting the quote from the Assumption of Moses, an ancient pseudepigraphal text. But he's also saying it in a way that everybody knows this information, that Michael wouldn't even bring an accusation, but he says, "The Lord rebuke you." He's appealing to the ultimate authority. He's not using, Michael doesn't use his own authority. He comes in the authority of El Elyon, Yahweh, the creator of heaven and earth. Does everybody understand that? One authority. One ultimate authority. He has a family, and he has loyal, glorious ones who he has given some authority to, but there's one ultimate authority. Okay? You could say he put the sons of God. You could use a human illustration, which I think is a good one. He made them governors. If you know America, we have 50 states. America is not, I have to resist, a democracy. And anyone who uses that, they don't understand it, and they've been poisoned already. It's a republic. Now it's gone. It's communist now. It's total horrible. I have shed many tears, but I've let it go. All right? But there's 50 states in a union. You guys kind of know something about unions with different states, don't you? It's done you a lot of good, too. All right? That was sarcasm. Okay, 50 states in a union, an agreement, and that signed contract is the Constitution. And each one of them has its own governor, the authority in that state. But there's also the highest authority, which is the President of the United States. Right? Now, again, I'm just using that. It's a human example. It doesn't, fix everything, but it gives you a glimpse in a human illustration of the sons of God were like governors, and they had authority and a job to do. But they were not the highest authority. They were supposed to give the highest authority to the creator of heaven and earth, the ultimate, the El Elyon. All right? Okay. Now, let's go to 2 Peter. They correlate together. Did Peter have something to say about this? Yes, he did. Let's just jump right in. 2 Peter chapter 2, pick it up in verse 10. This is especially true of those who follow the corrupt desire of the flesh and despise authority. This is all about authority, but he says the same thing. Bold and arrogant, they are not afraid to heap abuse on celestial beings. Now, look at this. Yet even angels, although they are stronger and more powerful, do not heap abuse on such beings when bringing judgment on them from the Lord. Now explain that to me. Look at it, think about it, and try to explain it. Say, this is in 2 Peter. Everybody should know this. Why don't they? Because a lot of teachers don't know what to do with it. There's two groups there. You see two groups? There's two authorities. There's the angel, which again is also not it's a job description. Angel can be used, a messenger can be used in lots of different ways. It's a messenger from the other realm. It's all angelos is in the Greek. Okay? Trying the best in Greek to explain this malach word in Hebrew. All right? So, but yet you see, angels won't bring an abuse on won't accuse a celestial being. You mean there's higher authorities? There's the angels and then there's these higher authorities? Who are they? You know who they are. They're the governors, the celestial beings. Now, if you've been around charismatic church for a long time, as I have, and you've read some of the books that are terrible, you know that they always talk about principalities and we're going to take them on and we're going to do all that. Jude and Peter were directly saying, do not do that. That is not your authority. So you got to burn those books. No, burn them. They're not evil. They're just wrong. But you learn the lesson. Okay? And that's really what this is about, spiritual warfare. That's why this is important. Because it's the gospel. It's the word of God that is the spiritual warfare. Okay? Not us sitting there. You can't take on a principality. Now that word is used, that word principality that Paul chooses to use about the powers in heaven, that word is a territorial word. It is a word for governors. And he uses it about the heavens. What is he talking about? Now, I think you're starting to see what he's talking about. That's the whole point of this. All right? But you see, yet even angels, although they are stronger and more powerful, do not heap abuse on such beings when bringing judgment on them from the Lord. Now, I believe that also Peter clearly has in mind this same story that Jude mentions. Okay? Well, both of them are dealing with, in their day, false Christian teachers were picking up, and some of the Jewish apostates were already doing that. That's where Kabbalah comes from. Okay? And were taking on angels or praying to angels and doing incantations and all this kind of stuff, or trying to step out of their authority when it comes to the glorious ones. That's not your power. That's not your authority. That's not your job. Okay? Anyway, but you see it right here. It's all through the New Testament, and I'm going to give you more examples. All right. Now, Peter's, a little harsh here. But these people blaspheme in matters they do not understand. They are like unreasoning animals, creatures of instinct, born only to be caught and destroyed, and like animals, they too will perish. That's what Peter thinks of the false teachers. Peter would get kicked out of a lot of our churches today. All right, now we're going to look at specific passages, not all of them, just a couple of them, a couple of the biggest ones that deal with angelic rebellion and what God's going to do about it. Now we know, to the 200 that descended on Mount Hermon, Peter and Jude told us are locked up in the pit. And look at Revelation chapter 9. The pit will be opened. All right? Now, this is Isaiah 24. It's been there the whole time, but it's hard for us to kind of put it in. So those 200 were locked up. We think, well, there's only Satan and then the demons, or we didn't know where the demons came from. So it will happen in that day that the Lord will punish the host of heaven on high. Punish the host of heaven on high? And the kings on earth. The majesties and the kings on earth. The powers behind the thrones and the thrones. They will be gathered together like prisoners in the dungeon and will be confined in prison. And of course, all Jewish understanding, they understood the 200 that were locked up. They all knew that. So this is saying also the angelic majesties, the governors who have received the same fate. And they'll be confined in prison, and after many days they will be punished. Then the moon will be abashed, and the sun ashamed, for the Lord of armies, okay, will reign on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem, and his glory will be before his elders, the elect angels. And you know, we are going to be brought into that council. And that's when Paul said, don't you know you will judge angels? That's what he was talking about. And he expected them all to know it. Okay? Now, let's look at the big one, Psalm 82. Now this one, there's a lot here. It's pretty incredible. Actually, this was, like I said, you know, the original one who challenged me in a lot of these things, and then I started really studying and diving into it deep, was Dr. Michael Heiser. And this was what did it for him. And he had already had a master's degree in doctrinal studies in Hebrew and was already teaching college courses. And then while he was going for another PhD in Paleo Hebrew and all this kind of... he didn't know about this until he was sitting in one of those classes. And somebody in the class challenged him, have you ever actually read Psalm 82 in Hebrew? And he went. So he never heard of any of this, read Psalm 82 in Hebrew and went, oh, wow. That kind of sounds like maybe a pantheon. All right, what's going on here? What's the context? Well, if you have the context, it comes alive. So anyway, I heard, and then I had the same reaction to it. Same exact reaction. Not to mention, Jesus quotes it. Jesus sends us here. All right, so I put in some Hebrew there to give you context. Oh, well, to give you the literal. Okay, Psalm 82. This is in the ESV. Elohim has taken his place in the divine council. Now, if you look at some of the other English translations, look what it says. Psalm 82 doesn't say that, does it? Well, someone yell it out. Who's that? Now, a lot of modern Bible teachers will actually interpret this as human rulers. But it says Elohim. Doesn't say, it's not, what? That doesn't make any sense. Why? Because they don't know how to deal with it. Elohim has taken his place in, we know what it says in Hebrew? Elohim has taken his place in the council of the Elohim. What? In the midst of the Elohim, he holds judgment. How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? Who is he talking to? The governors. Exactly right. Give justice to the weak and the fatherless. Maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. They have neither knowledge nor understanding. They walk about in darkness. Who? They let the people be in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are shaken. I said, you are Elohim. Now, some of you, if you know your Gospels well, you're thinking, is that when Jesus said, I said you are gods? Was he quoting this? The answer would be yes. You are gods, sons of the Most High, B'nai Elion. All of you, nevertheless, like men you shall die. Now, if this was about human rulers, why would he say, you human rulers will die like humans? Does that make any sense? Doesn't make any sense at all. Nevertheless, like men you shall die, and fall like any prince. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for you shall inherit all the nations. What is this about? It's very simple. This is about the governors, and a bunch of them are rebelling, claiming worship from themselves, their own authority and power. They want to have their own kingdom now. And they are starting to turn on El Elyon. It's not just about sifting human beings. It's also about the heavens. It's not just the earth that is being tested. The heavens are being tested as well. Adam and Eve, tested by the covering and cherub tested by Adam and Eve. We are under the authority, right? We were under the authority, right, of the watchers. But many of them turned, and now they're being judged by us. We're being judged by them. It's the Lord is sifting heaven and earth. Okay? But then arise, O God, you shall inherit the nations. Inherit the nations, what is this? This is about the Lord taking the authority back. He is judging the governor. I'll just use that because I think it's the easiest way to explain it. All right? Who have not done their job, have turned on him. They are going to die like men, and he is going to reclaim the nations. That is what's being said. All right. I have to do this, and then we'll be done for the day. John 10. And I'm going to do this really fast. What? Oh, I have to do question and answers. Yeah, so yeah, I want to leave a little room. I'm kidding. This is going to take a while. Yes. Because this one is going to make your mind spin a little bit. All right? Now, I remember the first time I heard this, my mind was spinning a little bit too. But this was another one of those passages that I knew, and I didn't get it. I didn't understand what was really going on. It didn't make sense. And I hear people like Todd White and the Bethelites all use this passage to say, oh, we're all gods. Don't you know that? Yeah, they say that, by the way. And it never sat right with me. What was really going on here? Well, actually, in proper context, it's very easy to understand what's going on here. But you got to have the context right. So we're going to look at that. Here we go. At that time, the Feast of Dedication. What's the Feast of Dedication? Hanukkah. Took place at Jerusalem. It was winter, and Jesus was walking in the temple in the portico of Solomon. The Jews then gathered around him and were saying to him, how long will you keep us in suspense? If you are the Messiah, tell us plainly. Jesus answered them, I told you, and you do not believe. The works that I do in my Father's name, these testify of me. So what is the context going on here? Are you the Son, the Messiah, the Son of Man, Daniel chapter 7? Is that who you're saying you are? And what is Jesus saying? Yeah, that's who I'm saying I am. And all of the miracles prove it. That's what he's saying. That's the context. There's a false teaching going around, and I hate to say it, because I had to hear it out of the horse's mouth, so I will warn you about it. It has nothing to do with this conference at all, but I can't help myself. I've always really admired John Hagee, and he's a great guy, and he stood for Israel. But he even wrote a book on a really, really bad doctrine, and it's a bad one. I'm not saying he's not a brother in Christ, but this one is bad, and if you've heard it, you need to reject it. And that is this. Jesus never proclaimed to be directly to the Jews. He never proclaimed that he was the Messiah. That is absolute. First of all, it's just ignorance and foolish. And almost as a way to kind of let them off the hook. Well, that is his reason. And it's wrong. It's totally wrong. It's heresy. Jesus was very clear and very plain, and that's why he said, if I hadn't come and done it, they wouldn't have been held accountable. But they've seen it, and they made their decision. All right? This whole story that we're reading now is about him saying it right in their face. Okay, so I'm sorry when I go through this, I couldn't help but if you ever hear that, reject it. If you've been told that, you didn't know better, reject it. It's not true, and this proves it. Okay. My Father's name, these testify of me, but you do not believe because you are not of my sheep. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. Now, the Good Shepherd illustration, again, he's the imagery of the prophets. There's so much imagery of the Good Shepherd, Zechariah. He's using it on purpose, and they all know it. And I give eternal life to them, and they will never perish, and no one will snatch them out of my hand. Someone say, hallelujah. My Father who has given them to me is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of the Father's hand. I and the Father are one. Now, was that a Trinitarian passage? That's why I have it underlined. Yes. Okay, next one. Now, we haven't even gotten to the good part yet, but that's all great. But it gives us the context. You have to have the context here. All right. Yes, that was a Trinitarian passage. Okay. We are Trinitarian. Okay. Some of you are not sure. Well, Kyle, I might have to straighten him out a little bit. All right. I'm kidding. All right. John chapter 10. What did I do? Yeah, it's still John chapter 10. All right. Okay. This is picking up in the story. The Jews picked up stones again to stone him. Why did they do that? Because he didn't tell them? Because they know exactly what he just said. They know exactly what he just said. He just proclaimed to be the Son of Man. He just proclaimed it, said it directly, bang in your face. That's why they picked up the stones. The Jews picked up stones again to stone him. Then Jesus answered them, I showed you many good works from the Father. For which of them are you stoning me? The Jews answered him, for a good work we do not stone you, but for blasphemy. And because you, being a man, make yourself out to be God. So did they understand what he was saying? Yes, they did. They knew exactly what he was saying. What was he saying? I am. That's what he's saying. Now, again, I say Daniel chapter 7 because you have to read it. I probably should have just put it in here, but that would just have been a lot more. Next to the Ancient of Days, and one like a son of man. Okay, at his right hand, who was two Yahwehs. Okay? It's there, Daniel chapter 7. Look at it. They know exactly what he's talking about. They were not ignorant of these passages. All right. You being a man, make yourself out to be God. Jesus answered them, has it not been written in your law, I said, you are gods? What would Jesus have said? Elohim. If he called them gods to whom the word of God came, and the strict scripture cannot be broken, Do you say of him whom the Father sanctified and sent into the world, you are blaspheming because I said I am the Son of God? If I do not do the works of my Father, do not believe me. But if I do them, though you do not believe me, believe the works. You know, Jesus is being incredibly gracious here. He's saying, listen, fine, you don't understand your own Bible. Fine. This proves it. Can you do this? He's given them mercy. They've seen all they need to believe. He's gone all the way, and they will not. Do not believe me, but if I do them, though you do not believe me, believe the works, so that you may know and understand that the Father is in me and I am in the Father. Therefore, they were seeking again to seize him, and he eluded their grasp. What is going on here? There is so much context. How has this passage been interpreted? Now, if you interpret Psalm 82 because you don't like Elohim sits on the council of the Elohim, and what have you guys done, and you're going to die like men, right? If you reject that and you try to naturalize it because you don't like what's being said there, it's too weird, and right? Then you can say, well, people that go around saying, well, doesn't it say we're all gods? So what is Jesus saying? They're attacking him. They get that he's claiming to be the Messiah. Then he says it right to them. Yeah, and these prove it, right? And then they're going to stone him because they know what he's saying. He's saying, I and the Father are one. They already get what he's saying. Then they're going to stone him. And then while they're about to stone him for blasphemy for saying, I and the Father are one, he's going, oh, guys, don't you know? It says in the Psalms that we're all God. So I can say it if I want to. So can you. It's all good. Is that what's being said there? That's ludicrous. They already know what he's saying. What is he saying? Put it in context. You already know the sons of God. I'm not just saying I'm one of them, which you know there is. I'm saying I am sent directly from the Father who sanctified and sent me. I'm saying I'm the Lord. I'm not a governor. Does everybody understand this? I'm the Lord, as the Lord of the council. That's what he's saying. That's his defense of using Psalm 82 is he is using the direct, easy Hebrew supernatural interpretation, the correct one of Psalm 82. And saying, I'm not just saying that I'm a son of God. You know that. No, I'm saying I'm the son. That's what he's saying. And they knew because they didn't go, oh, you're saying we can all say we're gods because that's what it says in Psalm. So there's no problem. Sorry, we shouldn't have picked up stones. You know, we can all say it. We're all gods. All of us are. See, that is ludicrous. And that's how it's interpreted a lot of times. Because they don't know what to do with it. Or they don't like it. Because then you go to Psalm 82 and Elohim and judging Elohim. Who's Elohim judging Elohim? I don't know. I don't like it. Okay? But Jesus is using Psalm 82, proclaiming that he is the Lord of the council. That he is the Son of Man. Yahweh in human form. That's what he's saying. Directly. He's being very clear. He's being very direct. Right in their face. And they know it. That's why they're so mad. Because they know what he's saying. They understand it. They know these passages well. He just had the audacity to say it. But he has done everything to prove to them that he is who he says he is. And they won't believe. So that whole interpretation, oh, it says you are gods. And, oh, that means Jesus said, well, we're all gods. Do you know the Mormons use this passage? They do. Are you combat a Mormon? Would you know how to if they threw this at you? Well, Todd White says the same thing. Oh. Did you feel that? I was like, whoa. Yeah. That's false teaching. Saying that this means that all humans are gods, or even all the Israelis are gods, that is a total decimation of these passages. Okay? What is being said here? Yes, I'm not just saying I'm one of the Banaha Elohim. I'm saying I am the specific one. Okay? All right. Hallelujah. Now, did I make that case? He's using this to defend his deity. So he's backing up the supernatural interpretation of Psalm 82. Therefore, the supernatural of Psalm 82 tells us what? The third angelic rebellion. Does everybody see that? I'm seeing some of you going, yeah, actually, if this piece goes, if this piece, then this piece. So if Jesus used this to back that, then Psalm 82, the supernatural, easy, simple reading of it, is that Elohim is going to judge the Elohim. All right? And they will die like men. And of course, Isaiah 24, he is going to deal with the host of heaven and the king's birth, and they will die like men and be imprisoned. Okay? All right. So, the third angelic rebellion. Why does this matter? Now, I'll tease tomorrow. Now, I changed the picture on this because I'm in Ireland. All right? When I originally did this part, I had a frame, and I had Columbus coming in with the cross. Okay? Yeah, the colonizers. Right? Enforcing their Jewish and European white God on us. Now I realize you guys are actually dealing with the same thing here. The same thing. Patrick isn't such a good guy anymore. He brought on this forced Christianity. And he threw out all of our gods. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And that's why you had a celebration about it. Okay? All right. Now, what is the connection? The connection is the third angelic rebellion shows us that there was authority given over the nations, that all the ancient gods of the pagans were not fake. Does everybody understand that? So what is their result? Each one has a result. First one, the fall, the separation, right? The sinful nature, blood sacrifice, all of that we went through, right? The second, what happened? The Nephilim, demons, the flood, right? All those results of the second. The third, what did we get from the third? Powerful sons of God making a name for themselves and claiming their own authority. And of course, all the different pictures, and you'll see it later, I have Satan and his angels. You all know it. Who are Satan's angels? The ones who choose him. Many align with him because they think, and their twisted, deceived mind. You know, the thing about deception is that you're deceived. Remember that. Okay? Who believe that he's their best chance. But we've already seen, you showed you in Daniel, they're not a hive mind. They have free will. And they war with each other. You mean a lot of the ancient pagan thing, and they would war with each other, wasn't always just thought up by some human king? Exactly right. That there was fallen governors warring with each other for their own power and authority. Does everybody understand that? And what it does is remember going back to last night, Solomon, the wisest, he was given supernatural inheritance, well, that too. Intelligence, understood these things, and then he goes and bows down and burns incense to a total fake that's not even real. It's just total fraud. There's nothing there. Does that make any sense? It makes no sense. Was Solomon bowing down to real things? Was it rebellion? It was. It was. Because there is one Almighty. Has not my hand made all of these things? But they are being judged as well. The heavens were being tested as well. Not just the earth being, and the writer of Hebrews, one more time, I will shake not only the heavens, but also the earth. All right? So, why? Because the Lord wants loyal ones with him for eternity. We're all being salted with fire, heaven and earth. Okay? They were tested, and some fell. We don't know how many. And it doesn't mean they all did. Okay? But some clearly did. All right, and it was probably gradual. Doesn't mean it all happened at once. Like we showed you with the Prince of Persia, he detains and stops Gabriel. He should immediately, like, this is Gabriel. Yeah, you know, like, oh, I shouldn't get in your way. He's doing the Lord's business here. But he stopped him. And Michael had to come straighten him out. You see right there. And then, of course, you have the Lord has already decreed that the prince of Greece is going to come and deal with Persia. There's a lot there. Now, of course, I got to stop, but there's a lot of cool stuff to talk about at least. All right. This is going to be tomorrow, and then, of course, this is another subheading. I kind of put them together from another presentation. The war on the gods, reclaiming the Gentile nations.